I saw my son watching me in the hotel room, and I couldn't resist my stepson, infidelity story. He saw me first, I saw him last, but neither of us looked away. One breath, one touch, and just like that, I wasn't his stepmother anymore. I was something far worse. I never imagined I'd start a story like that. Honestly, I still don't know why I'm sharing this, maybe because keeping it inside feels heavier every day. Maybe because if I don't let it out, I'll drown in the silence. I wasn't always like this. I used to be steady, predictable, the kind of woman who followed the rules, even when they hurt. But something happened that night, something I can't explain away or erase. No matter how many times I tell myself it was a mistake. I was just supposed to get away for the weekend. A bowling tournament, some fresh air, and a break from the weight of my divorce. Caleb, my stepson, came with me, mostly because there was no one else to watch him. And Evan, my teenage son, begged to tag along. I thought it would be simple. I thought I could handle a hotel room, a couple of nights, and some awkward silence between us. But I was wrong. That moment, the one I can't stop thinking about, started with a look. That's all, a look I wasn't meant to see. I wish I could tell you I turned away, that I shut it down, that I did the right thing, but I didn't. Because for the first time in years, I felt seen. And that's what scares me the most. If you've ever crossed a line in your heart before you crossed it with your hands, maybe you'll understand. I didn't just lose a husband when the divorce papers were signed. I lost my anchor, my rhythm, my reflection in someone else's eyes. For 15 years, I poured everything into a man who never really saw me, not deeply. Not fully. At first, the cracks were small. No good morning kiss. No questions about my day. Then, slowly, the silence became a third person in the room, louder than any argument we ever had. By the end, we were strangers sharing bills and a bathroom. He walked out on a Tuesday. No screaming, no suitcase thrown down the stairs moment. Just a door clicking shut and the faint smell of his cologne that never really faded from the hallway rug. I didn't cry. I wish I had. Instead, I did what I always do. I made coffee, folded laundry, kept moving like nothing happened. But everything had changed. Not just my last name. Not just my bed. Me. I'd become someone else. Invisible. Background noise in my own life. And when Caleb moved back in, tall, quiet, polite to a fault, I told myself it was temporary. He was my ex-husband's son. A reminder of what used to be. But even then, even in the stillness of those early days, I felt something shift. He looked at me, not with pity or obligation, but like I was someone worth noticing. And when you've been invisible for too long, a single glance can feel like salvation. Even if it's the beginning of something you're not ready to admit. Caleb wasn't a boy anymore, not the awkward teenager I remembered. He was 20 now, taller than his father, broader shoulders, softer eyes. He didn't say much when he moved back in. Just a duffel bag, a polite nod, and, thanks for letting me crash here for a while. I told him it was no problem. Of course, that this house would always be a place he could come back to. But inside, I wasn't ready for how different it would feel having him here again, not just in the space, but in the air. He was quiet, gentle, helped with dishes without being asked, waited for me to speak first at dinner, never intruded, never pushed, but he watched. I'd feel his eyes on me when I was folding laundry, or sipping wine on the porch after work. Sometimes I'd look up and he'd glance away, quickly, like he'd been caught doing something wrong. But other times, he didn't look away at all. He'd hold my gaze just a second too long. Just enough to make me feel warm in places I hadn't felt in years. Just enough to make my chest tighten with something between guilt and curiosity. Evan didn't notice. He was 16, loud, distracted by games and girls. He'd barge in and change the atmosphere, oblivious to the unspoken tension floating like fog between Caleb and me. I kept telling myself it was innocent. That he was just adjusting. That I was imagining it all. But deep down, I knew better. Because I wasn't just reacting to him, I was waiting for it. And that terrified me more than anything. It was supposed to be just a weekend away. Evan had a regional bowling tournament 2 towns over, and the idea of driving back and forth both days felt exhausting. So I booked us a room, 2 double beds. One night, nothing fancy, just convenient. I hadn't planned on Caleb joining, but when he heard Evan talking about it, he offered to come. You could use help driving, he said, and I didn't argue. Truthfully, I didn't want to be alone. Not with all that empty road and my thoughts. The hotel was modest, clean, beige everything. One of those places with a vending machine that never works and a hallway that smells faintly like old carpet and microwave dinners. We checked in. Evan was buzzing with energy, already texting his teammates. Caleb was calm, quiet as always, offering to grab our bags from the car. I watched him through the lobby window. The way he moved, the quiet confidence, it made something tighten in my chest again. That night, Evan fell asleep early. Tournament nerves wore him out. Caleb and I stayed up watching some late-night cooking show on mute. The light from the TV flickering across his face. At one point, I got up to brush my teeth. When I came back into the room, Caleb was watching me, not casually, not accidentally, just watching. He didn't blink. I stood there for a second, frozen, the electric hum of the hotel fridge the only sound between us. And in that moment, I felt the shift. It wasn't a look of confusion. It was a choice. A line drawn in silence. And I didn't know, would I cross it? Or had I already? I should have said something. I should have laughed it off, made a joke, turned away, drawn the line with my words. But I didn't. I stood there in the hotel room, toothbrush in hand, frozen in place while Caleb looked at me like I was someone I hadn't been in years. Someone he wanted. And worse, someone I wanted to be. I'm gonna head to bed, I finally mumbled, my voice barely there. He nodded, slow, eyes still holding mine for a second longer than they should have. I turned off the bathroom light. The room dimmed. Evan snored softly from the other bed, turned to the wall, completely unaware. I slid under the covers, trying to focus on anything else, the hum of the AC. The rough sheets, the ache in my lower back, but none of it worked. I could feel him, just a few feet away, awake, waiting. Minutes passed. Then I heard it. The soft creak of the other bed. A shift in weight. I opened my eyes. Caleb was standing at the foot of my bed. Barefoot, silent. His voice was low. I couldn't sleep. I swallowed hard. You okay? He nodded once. Can I just sit here? Just for a minute? I should have said no. Instead, I moved over, just slightly. He sat down, careful, like I was glass. Neither of us said anything. The silence between us wasn't empty anymore. It was full, heavy, and charged. Then his hand brushed against mine. Just a touch. I didn't pull away. That was all it took. A touch I could have ignored. But didn't. His fingers barely grazed mine. Not by accident, not forced. Just searching. I could have pulled my hand back. I should have. Every voice in my head screamed that this was the moment, this was the line. But I didn't move. Because in that quiet, sterile hotel room, with the whir of the air conditioner and Evan breathing steady in the next bed, Caleb's touch felt like oxygen. I hadn't realized how long I'd been holding my breath until that moment. He didn't look at me right away. His hand stayed where it was, fingers resting lightly against mine. Not gripping, not demanding, just waiting. An invitation. And I accepted. I let my fingers slide into his. Gently, uncertainly. The air between us changed. Slower, denser. My pulse thundered in my ears. I turned my head, finally meeting his eyes. And what I saw there wasn't lust. It wasn't conquest. It was need, longing, like I was something he'd been trying so hard not to reach for, but couldn't resist anymore. He leaned closer, breath shallow. I didn't stop him. When our lips touched, it wasn't hungry, it wasn't frantic. It was soft, careful, as if he was terrified I'd vanish if he pressed too hard. I should have broken it. I should have said his name like a warning. I should have remembered who I was, who he was. But I didn't. Instead, I kissed him back. One heartbeat, then another. His hand rested on my jaw, steady but unsure, like he was memorizing the shape of me. And for that moment, terrible, beautiful, irreversible, I wasn't his stepmother. I was a woman being seen, being touched, being chosen. And it shattered something inside me. Because once you feel that, you can't pretend you didn't. I didn't sleep. Or maybe I did. In short, broken fragments that didn't feel like rest. When I opened my eyes, the room was filled with early morning light, soft and gray. The kind that makes everything feel colder than it is. Caleb was gone. His bed was perfectly made, untouched. I sat up slowly, heart pounding, my body still aching with everything we didn't say. Had I dreamed it? Imagined the way he touched me? The way I let him? No. The memory was too vivid. My lips still tingled where his had been. My hand remembered the weight of his. I got up quietly, trying not to wake Evan, who was still curled up in his blanket, one arm dangling off the bed like nothing in the world had changed. But everything had. In the bathroom mirror, I barely recognized myself. My face looked the same. But my eyes, they held something I didn't want to see. I splashed water on my cheeks, brushed my hair, put on lipstick like I had somewhere important to be, like routine could erase what I'd done. When I stepped out, Caleb was standing near the elevator, phone in hand. He looked up, met my gaze, and then looked away. Just like that. No smile, no acknowledgement. Like he didn't know what to do either. I didn't say anything, I couldn't. So I walked past him, quiet, numb. And for the first time in a long time, I felt shame curl in my stomach like a fist. Not because of what we'd done, but because part of me didn't regret it. And I didn't know what to do with that. We barely spoke the rest of that day. Evan won his match. He was all smiles, bouncing between lanes with teenage joy, oblivious to the weight pressing down on the adults beside him. Caleb stayed close, but never too close. He didn't touch me, didn't meet my eyes. But I could feel it, the hum beneath every movement, every silence. When we got home, I went straight to my room, closed the door, tried to forget. But forgetting doesn't work when your body remembers everything. That night, I found it, a small folded note, tucked under my pillow. Caleb's handwriting. If it was wrong, why did it feel like breathing again? My hands trembled. I stared at those words for what felt like hours. It wasn't just what he said, it was what I already knew. Because I'd asked myself the same thing, over and over. If it was wrong, why did I feel awake for the first time in years? I sat on the edge of the bed, that note clenched in my fist. And I cried, not for what we did, but because I couldn't say it wasn't going to happen again. There was no neat line to step back across, no clean undoing. This wasn't just a mistake. It was a fracture. And part of me wanted to fall straight through it. But another part, the louder, crueler part, whispered that I already had. What terrified me most wasn't what we'd done. It was the ache that followed. The ache that didn't feel like regret. It felt like hunger. It didn't take long for the air in the house to change. Not between Caleb and me, we'd already been walking that tightrope in silence, but around us. Around me. I started catching Olivia's name on my phone screen more often. My ex-husband's oldest friend. She never used to call. Now she just wanted to check in. There was something in her tone, casual. Too casual. And then Evan brought it up. Over dinner, his mouth full of spaghetti. Why'd you close the hotel curtains so early? I thought you liked the view. I froze, fork halfway to my lips. I just had a headache, I said too quickly. He shrugged. It's just, Caleb was standing there for a long time. I thought he was waiting for something. My blood went cold. I laughed it off, said something about Caleb needing air, but that night, I couldn't sleep. I kept thinking about that hallway, about Olivia, about the stupid hotel room and how small that moment had felt until now. Like it existed in its own world, unseen, untouched, safe. But it wasn't. And it never had been. When I opened my laptop the next morning, I found a message. No subject, no text, just one photo attachment. A still frame. From the hotel hallway security camera. Me, Caleb, standing too close, my face tilted up toward his hand on my wrist. The file name was one word. Careful. And I knew exactly who had sent it. I haven't answered her message. I haven't told Caleb what she knows, what she saw, what she's keeping in her pocket like a match, waiting for the right moment to strike. But she doesn't need to say a word. The damage is already crawling under my skin. Tonight, I came into the kitchen and found Caleb sitting at the table, silent. Still, his phone lit up in front of him. The photo was open. Our photo. I stopped breathing. He didn't say anything. He didn't have to. His hands were shaking. Mine were worse. I'm sorry, I whispered. But I didn't know if I meant it. He looked at me, not angry, not afraid, just broken. I turned away before he could see what I'd become. Later, in bed, I stared at the ceiling until morning, wondering how I went from invisible to unforgivable. I still don't know what Olivia wants. But I know what I've lost. If someone looked at you the way he looked at me, like you were made of light and breath and everything you thought had died, would you stop them? Would you stop yourself?